All right. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you all so very much for jumping in on our August Optimize chats. We've been enjoying doing these little networking chats once a month just to bring some people together, share a little bit, and bring something of value to not just to senior care people, but anyone. So like Kevin has presented before about the Beamer, because that can truly help anybody. Eric is presenting today on Medicare, and I'm going to let him just talk all about that. But he's been a great resource for me to send people to that they're just not sure what to do about insurance and making sure that they have the right plan and everything else. So he is very, very valuable. So thank you again for jumping on today. And if you haven't already, please be sure to put all of your contact information in the chat so that we can also utilize this for networking too. Just to give you a little bit of an update about Optimized Senior Living here in Lebanon, we have a new director of care. Her name is Phyllis. She is fantastic. She's an LPN and here full-time, kind of always available. So definitely recommend reaching out to her if you're wanting to connect with us and provide care, anything like that. I will put her information in the chat box. But we are definitely welcoming Phyllis, and she's a huge asset to our team. A couple other things that we've been busy doing here. We're still working on our third building, getting that all set. So that's always exciting, and seeing baby steps in the building process. So we do currently have a private room with a half bath available. The half baths don't come available very often. We only have 6 of those. So one of those is available right now. The cost is a little bit less than those with the full bath. So somebody looking for an assisted living type option, definitely have them reach out to me for that. We do an all-inclusive pricing model. And let's see, we are hosting the September talk. I don't know if you've heard of this. It's a panel of different people in the industry, everything but the home to a realtor, to a senior advisor, everybody in between. I won't be talking, I'm just hosting it, but it is a great group of people on there that are going to be providing some valuable information. So pay attention to your email as I'll be sending out the invite for that. And unfortunately, that will be via Zoom as well in September. So, and then lastly, we're excited too, we're always trying to find different ways to add value to our employees and show them how much we love and appreciate them. So we did just recently add 3 new benefits for them. They now get free chiropractor services every week. The chiropractor comes here and works on our staff, which is fantastic. They are loving that. I can't tell you how many different things we've tried to implement. And when we told them the chiropractor, they all were like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. So that's pretty cool. And we also are starting to, let's see, what are the other things? Oh, we implemented a 401k and doing this prepay option thing too. So if they want their checks ahead of time, need their money ahead of time, they get that with very, very little fees from what they would normally pay if they go to a place. So I can introduce you to a person that does that too if you're interested in that for employees. And then lastly, we are just hiring for third shift right now. If you know of a caregiver looking for a third shift option, and it is a low caregiver ratio, and we do things a little bit differently here. So keep us in mind for that. All right, I've talked too long. So without further ado, I would love to introduce you to Eric Christianson. And I'm gonna let him just go to town explaining who he is, what he does, and how he can be of value to you and those you love. Take it away, Eric.
Well, as Lindsay mentioned, I'm Eric Christianson, and I'm into my 4th year of owning my own Medicare insurance brokerage. We work with many different companies so we can try and help find the right fit for everyone. My background was actually working as a captive agent with Humana prior to going independent. Just got frustrated with only offering one company instead of offering 6 or 7. Was minimal options I was able to offer working with just one. What is Medicare? Medicare, simply put, is health insurance primarily for people over 65, but also for those people that are permanently disabled for a period of 24 months or longer and unable to work at any job, not just at the job they may have been at, but at any job. and able to pull Social Security Disability Income, or SSDI. That represents about 5% of my clients. Honestly, about 95% of the people that I have in my book of business are people 65 and older. That's much more common with Medicare. Medicare consists of two parts. It is Part A and Part B. If you've ever seen a Medicare card, doesn't look like anybody here is old enough to be on Medicare themselves, but maybe with your parents or grandparents, you've seen a Medicare card. It'll say A in an effective date and B in an effective date. A is hospitalization, B is medical, the everything else. The way that got paid for throughout your working life, now you see Mr. FICA, and why is he stealing your money every paycheck you get? Well, part of that payroll tax is going to fund Medicare Part A. You pay that throughout all of your working life. When you go on Medicare, you start paying Medicare Part B as in boy. That's the medical part. And that comes out literally until the grave. You pay for that every month that you're on Medicare until you pass away. The median number for most people this year is $148.60. I just met with a gentleman and his wife 2 days ago. Their Medicare Part B is over $500 a month, not because they had a late enrollment penalty, but because they're loaded. So you're making a lot of money. The government ramps it way up when you have a significant income in retirement. But for most people this year, it's $148.60. If you get Social Security, that's withheld automatically. If you're someone who's taking Social Security late to get the enhanced benefit, and explaining that, I'll defer to a financial advisor. But if you're taking Social Security late, you have to pay that bill directly yourself to the Fed. Otherwise, it comes out of Social Security. So why does a profession like mine even exist? Why do my products even exist? Well, it's because of all the things that Medicare doesn't pay. With Medicare Part A, the hospitalization, which is actually inpatient hospital, inpatient rehab, and the ambulance comes out of Medicare Part A. Those all have significant deductibles and per diem costs beyond what Medicare is paying. Can be very backbreaking expenses for most people. Medicare Part B is the famous 80-20. Medicare pays 80% of the medical bill, the individual pays 20%. What is unfortunate with Medicare, as opposed to traditional health insurance, which most of you probably have, a maximum out of pocket on your health insurance, a number that you hit a year that is your worst year and you don't pay anything beyond that. Well, Medicare doesn't do that. So if you have $100 in medical bills, that's 20 bucks. It's not going to hurt anybody. If you have $100,000 in medical bills, that's $20,000, and you're going to pay it. There's no maximum out-of-pocket threshold to cut that off. Thus, what I do. Medicare came around in 1965, signed into law by President Johnson, and immediately the insurance industry saw this gaping hole that I just described and invented Medicare supplement insurance. That was the first way of supplementing it. It's private insurance. There's no federal subsidy to it. It's just between you, the insurance company, and your checking account. You pay a premium every month, and most or all of your remaining expenses after Medicare are covered 100%. Products now don't cover quite 100% anymore. That went away last year, but the majority is still covered. The problem was most people can't afford it. The average person can't afford that, and over the next 30 years, they realized people were either sitting golden because they had Medicare supplement and Medicare, or they were just rolling the dice with original Medicare and couldn't afford anything else. So in 1997, President Clinton signed into law Medicare Part C, more commonly known as Medicare Advantage. Those are HMO and PPO plans with little or no upfront costs. A lot of the HMOs in this market are actually zero premium because they have a payment come from the Medicare Trust Fund every month to pay the premium for the individual from money that they've paid into Medicare. They're network-based plans, so it's incumbent on the individual to work with their agent to make sure that the plan they pick has the doctors they want. And then everything is co-pays for service, much like traditional health insurance. You have a Small copay to see the doctor, a little more to see a specialist, outpatient surgery, et cetera, et cetera. Everything has an associated copay, and they have maximum out-of-pocket thresholds like traditional health insurance. So say you're in a plan with a $4,900 maximum out-of-pocket, well, when your copays hit $4,900 for the year, you're done paying anything for the year. So that put a third leg on the stool. That created something for people that couldn't afford that upfront cost of Medicare supplement insurance to have something to get their costs down. Still one problem: drugs, prescriptions. Think back, we're all old enough to think back to the late 1990s, second term of President Clinton. There was all kinds of hullabaloo in the media about grandma's deciding whether or not she's going to buy food this month or get her drugs. And we went into grandma's house and we found a bag of Alpo in the closet because it was the only thing she could afford to eat. Those were real news stories that were going on in the late 90s and created enormous pressure for Congress to eventually create a bill for Medicare Part D, as in drugs. And in 2006, President Bush signed into law the Medicare Part D Act, which created Medicare prescription drug coverage. Now, unlike A and B, that's not something you get directly from the government. The government saw that there was already the infrastructure in place with Medicare Advantage with approved companies, you know, the Humanas, the United Healthcares, the Aetnas, the Anthems, and many others of the world already had an approved infrastructure for administering Advantage. So the government said, okay, we're going to do the oversight and create the monetary limits. We're going to have these companies actually create the products and sell the insurance products, partially federally subsidized, to Medicare insurance recipients so that they had some kind of coverage for prescription drugs. And thus Medicare Part D became the fourth leg of the stool. If someone had Medicare Advantage, they meshed like a hand in a glove, were created to be part of the same product. If they were on a Medicare supplement, it became a third card to carry. So a person with a Medicare supplement actually carries three cards: their Medicare card and their supplement they present to the doctor when they go. Medicare pays what they're responsible for. Then they submit the supplement, they pay the difference. And then there's the third card, which you take to the pharmacy. Or if you're in a long-term care facility, they'll have on record with the long-term care facility drug provider on site, you know, in the case of something like Optimize. With Medicare Advantage, it's one card for everything. You don't even use the Medicare card. You just have that one card, you present it for hospital, for doctor, for drugs, for the whole shooting match. And that is the landscape of Medicare. Hopefully done in English so that everybody understands. I know it's not an exciting topic. I bring it up with a lot of people and you can just see their eyes glaze over as soon as you say words like Medicare or insurance. You know, you see eyes glaze over and the line of drool come from the corner of the lip. So with that, I'd like to open it up to any questions if anybody has anything.
That was a really great overview of that, Eric. I never heard it put so well. I mean, I didn't know that about the different plans. But I'm going to present the question that I actually texted you about yesterday. My grandfather needing a stair lift.
Okay.
Yes, how is that covered, or if it is?
Well, there's a category in Medicare called durable medical equipment. What a durable medical equipment as opposed to disposable would be the difference between, say, a wheelchair or a diabetic test strip. A test strip is something disposable. You use it once and discard it. A wheelchair, you're not going to wear a wheelchair out. You know, it's going to be there, or a seat lift to get you out of the chair, or a stairway lift like we were discussing last night for your grandfather. Medicare covers those if approved on a 80-20 basis. It's covered under Medicare Part B since it's not hospitalization. So Medicare would cover 80%. The patient responsible portion would be 20%. In the case of a Medicare supplement, that would cover the difference as long as the device was approved, you know, by Medicare. If you're on a Medicare Advantage plan, most Medicare Advantage plans, you are still responsible for the 20% cost on durable medical equipment. They generally don't pay beyond that. That's one of the more glaring exceptions in Medicare Advantage is durable medical equipment.
To that, what level of disability does one have to demonstrate to get something like a chairlift or a wheelchair?
Well, to be on Medicare in the first place, they need to be approved by Medicare, and it's generally 100%. So you have to be unable to work. You couldn't go sit and cashier at a gas station if you maybe formerly were a construction worker and you can't do that anymore, but you could do a light job. You're not going to get on Medicare. You have to be shown to be unable to hold down a job at all because of your disability.
Okay, I mean, provide you're on Medicare, like her grandfather, and she wanted the stair lift. What would she have to? What would her father have to be? 100% can't walk, 60% can't walk, pain in his legs.
They have a medical review board, and they would take a look at situation by situation, and with their own criteria, they'd come back yes or no. So, as far as if there's an actual percentage to that, I've never been told one. It's really reviewed on a case-by-case basis. They'll look at the medical records and to their own group judgment decide, yes, this person needs one, no, this person does not. So I've had some people decline for example, chair lifts that really left me scratching my head on why they would be declined, and others that have been approved that have really raised my eyebrows thinking, oh, I didn't think they were that bad. So.
Eric, is it the norm for people to feel kind of confused by all of this? Because as Lindsay said, this has really been the most concise, like translation, easy translation I've ever heard. And I appreciate it. But are we all sitting here going like, are most people confused by all of this?
If it were easy, I would be doing something else for a living.
Okay, so
it's in government speak, most of it. If you've ever seen the every year in October, people get a new copy of the Medicare and You handbook from the federal government.
Yes,
it's a great way for overcoming insomnia. There's a wonderful anecdote I use with a lot of people about how things are in government speak. President Teddy Roosevelt, 100 years ago, the way he would submit a bill to Congress was he would take a slip of paper with the chief of staff in the Oval Office, scribble down 1 or 2 sentences and say, take this to all the attorneys and have them beef it up into government speak because this is too simple for a congressman to understand. Just make sure when it comes back, it does this before I sign it. That's kind of how things are with Medicare. They don't make it simple. They don't put it in English. They beef it up into all this crazy government speak and then send it out to people and expect them to understand it.
So
no,
okay, well, thank you.
You're not wrong.
Thank you for that sanity check.
You're not wrong.
Okay, my other quick question is, so for someone to have optimal coverage,
yes,
they would want to have, they would have Medicare, and then they would have the supplemental, and then you talked about the first card would be your Medicare card. The second card is your supplemental, proof of supplemental insurance. And then you have the third card for the pharmacy. I'm a power of attorney for somebody, so I'm trying to make sure I have my ducks in a row for this stuff. But anyhow, is that correct? Like ideally you would have, I mean, I know a lot of people can't afford the supplemental to your point, but if you were to say, how would one have the best coverage possible right now at today, on this date, August 26, 2020, what would be, and then I was following, I got a little confused when you talked about Medicare Part C and D brought in. So is that all included? Those are all included in Medicare?
C is Medicare Advantage. It's the alternative to Medicare.
Alternative, okay.
It's the yin to the yang. Think of the difference this way. In the case of a Medicare supplement, you're paying a premium up front, so you don't have any back-end costs.
Okay.
In the case of a Medicare Advantage, you're paying little or no premium up front with the understanding that you're going to have copays or costs on the back end as you utilize it.
Okay,
So
and then,
they're complete mirror flip-flops of each other.
okay, and then Medicare Part D is
The drugs.
okay. So kind of back to my question, which is probably a really hard question for you to answer, but.
Nah.
Okay.
The supplement that's the Cadillac, that's the Rolls Royce. That's what everyone would like to have if they could afford it, is the supplement with the separate drug plan. Because a supplement is the ultimate in predictability of your medical bills. As my parents always put it, we know what our worst month of medical bills are going to be because we paid our premium. That's our medical costs, is paying the premium. With an Advantage plan, your medical costs might be really light. They might get heavier depending on what's going on, determines what copays you have. So there is a level still of some unpredictability within the Advantage, although there is a maximum out-of-pocket threshold. Whereas with the supplement, if you can afford to pay that premium, you know exactly what your worst case scenario is going to be. The only variable in your life would be your copays for your drugs under Medicare Part D. But on the medical side and the hospital side, you know exactly what your costs are because you paid the premium. Does that answer?
Yes, thank you.
You bet.
So Eric, when you're, this is all great information, and having been in the pharmaceutical side, I understood a lot of it,
Okay.
but I didn't understand a couple of the things. But, you know, with respect to cost, I mean, obviously that's the biggest thing. When we talked about donut holes way back, you know, there's donut holes and now people are used to that. I think they've actually gotten rid of it. But with respect to cost.
Almost,
yeah. What is the average cost? I mean, because you can have a big premium plan that covers everything and you're paying a lot of premiums, but then you could have a basic plan that just covers the basic and you're not paying the huge premiums. What's the general cost area? If you're doing Part B, C, and D.
Okay. A Medicare Supplement G, which is the most thorough now, the F went away last year. So I just wrote one for a 65-year-old with AARP United Healthcare on Monday. That was $112 and change. He's going to have his Medicare Part B. Now, granted, that's the guy that was loaded, so his is really high. But if he was the majority of people, it would have been $148.60. And then the prescription drug plans, depending on the level of what a person needs, Humana's got one for $13. United Healthcare's got one that's as high as $90. Which one we wind up choosing for the individual is really geared towards a lot to what level of drugs they need. The higher price drug plans price more advantageously for the more expensive brand name drugs. Something like the $13 plan that I mentioned, that's ideal for the person who doesn't want to shell out a lot of money and takes nothing but generics. You know, that expensive plan works.
And I may have missed it. The supplemental G is sort of the all-encompassing that gives you
the most all-encompassing that is remaining today. There used to be one that was called F that went away last year that covered 100% of everything that was left over from Medicare. CMS, the Center for Medicaid Services, Medicare and Medicaid Services in Washington, the federal agency that does Medicare oversight, said that was literally too good, that recipients needed to have some kind of skin in the game. So the insurance company said, well, how about this? And they came out with G, and the government said, okay, that's good enough. The only difference, F paid everything from $1 on anything left over from Medicare. G does the same thing, except Medicare Part B as in boy has a $180 deductible a year. Now you're responsible to pay the first $180 every year as a deductible, and then the G and the F are identical after that. But the government said that was good enough to put some skin in the game.
Yeah.
And that's the one that I wrote on a 65-year-old for $112.
Yeah, and if you've ever tried to go on the CMS website and find anything, talk about confusing. That's worse than a black hole.
Sir, you have a gift for understatement.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
You bet. Anybody else?
Eric, this is Robert.
Hi, Robert.
Hey, this information is fantastic.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for this. Put together very, very well and very, very useful and helpful. Are you able to give maybe a 60-second or 2-minute talk on hospice and how that relates to Medicare? How those work together? Is that too
Well,
broad?
they actually work together very simply. There's nothing for Medicare supplements or Advantage really to do when it deals with hospice, because hospice, generally speaking, is covered 100% by Medicare. So once you get past the assisted living stage, which, you know, Lindsay works with and my mother currently lives in back in South Dakota, past the nursing home stage and actually into hospice, hospice is covered 100% by Medicare already at the federal level, without the insurance companies even having to take part.
Gotcha. The reason I asked that question is because it came up about a couple of weeks ago for me, and there was someone in a skilled nursing facility who was receiving therapy, and they called about hospice. And I said, a very high percentage of the time, Medicare will not pay for both. They will pay for one or the other.
Correct.
Medicare says, hey, as long as you're getting skilled, we'll pay for room and board and all of your therapy. And when that is complete, then you can have hospice. There are very rare cases when Medicare may pay for both. But then it came up that they were being skilled under Medicare A, and we were going to bill for hospice under Medicare B.
Right.
And that confused me a little bit.
Well, Medicare doesn't like the idea of paying for care that implies that a person is going to survive and care that implies we're making you comfortable while you die. That makes their head explode, quite simply.
Sure.
Hospice in its purest form is keeping some, like my father went through 2 years ago, is for keeping someone comfortable while they die. That's hospice in its purest definition. No one goes into hospice, certainly in the eyes of Medicare, with the idea that they're going to come back out of it.
Right.
If they're receiving skilled care on top of that, well, that's creating an implication to Medicare that hospice is not necessarily necessary, because if they're getting this skilled care, they might come out of it and recover. Why would we bother paying for hospice, which implies they're definitely going to die? So there's where your redundancy is going to come in, and no, they don't like paying for both at the same time.
Yeah, that's correct. And for someone being in hospice, I understand that. I was thinking maybe that might help the group a little bit. But then there's also the situation where, you know, when Medicare is paying one or the other, there have been situations where somebody might be, their terminal diagnosis might be end-stage renal failure, and they're getting therapy for a hip fracture. Those two being completely unrelated. There have been just, you know, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was nodding in agreement.
Okay.
No,
Yeah. So Medicare will say, okay, it's okay for therapy for the hip fracture. That's unrelated to the end-stage renal diagnosis. So hospice is okay. Very rare, but.
And what you're citing there is honestly more of an exception type basis, not something that's going to happen with any commonality at all.
Yeah. Didn't mean to get off track. Thank you for explaining all that. Eric, that's one of the best presentations I've seen for a long time. So thank you very much. That's very, very helpful.
I'm flattered. Thank you. Lindsay, I know we've gone way over 15. I hope that's okay.
No, this is great information. Medicare is a very complicated thing. I think we could talk all day about the intricacies of it, right? And ask a ton of questions. So no, that was a great overview. Thank you so much, Eric.
I thank you so much for the invitation to come. I was really happy to do it.
Yeah. All right. Well, sounds great. Thank you, everybody, so much for jumping on. We do this every month. It's usually the third Wednesday. I dropped the ball this month. So in September, it will be the third Wednesday of September at 9:30 in the morning. And stay tuned on who the topic or who will be discussing that day. But thank you all so very much. Have an awesome Wednesday, and we will connect soon.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Eric.
Have a great day.
Thank you.